Alright, in this video we're going to talk about how to decode a message. Your assignment was to first put a coded message on the discussion board and then to reply to a classmate and decode their message. Now make sure you decode a message that hasn't already been done by someone else. Okay, do a unique one. So here we go, decoding a message. So when you open the discussion board and you see someone's message, it should look something like this. They should have their message written in numbers, and they should tell you what function they used to code that message. Okay, now don't go and think that, oh, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, so like 7, this will be G right here, because it won't. Okay, what you want to make sure you do is find the inverse of this function, and we will use that to decode the message. All right, so we need to undo what they did. That means find the inverse. Okay, how do we find the inverse of a function? Well, we switch x and y, and if they wrote this as f of x, that's totally fine. Just change it to a y for now. Okay, so I have switch your x and your y. So we have now x equals, and in place of the x we're going to put a y, 2y plus 5. And then we solve for y. Okay, so you switch your x's and y's and solve for y. That's how we find an inverse. So to solve for y, I would have to first subtract 5 from both sides. I apologize for the ugliness of my writing, but that's just the way it is. Okay, so x minus 5 equals 2y. I still have to solve for y. It's multiplied by 2, so to undo that I would divide by 2 on both sides. Now if you're not a super big fan of fractions, I would just leave it like this, because when you're decoding, this will be a lot easier to work with than if you take the 2 and divide it into each little piece. Okay, so my inverse function is x minus 5, that whole thing, divided by 2. Okay, so step 1, find the inverse of their function. Next, we're going to use this inverse to decode their message. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, we found their inverse. F inverse of x is x minus 5 divided by 2. We are now going to use that to decode the numbers that they have here. To do that, you take one number at a time, put it into the inverse, okay, and then write down the number that you get out of it. So 23. Would put that in here, 23 minus 5, the whole thing divided by 2. Well, 23 minus 5 is 18. If I divide that by 2, I get 9. So the first number in my decoded message is 9. Okay, we have a break. Our next number is 51. 51 minus 5 is 46. Divided by 2 is 23. Okay, so here I have a 23. 7 minus 5 is 2. Divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so I know my next number is 1. 33. 33 minus 5 is 28. Divided by 2 is 14. Okay, and hopefully you have the hang of it so far, but I would continue this. Go through every single number in their message, put it into the inverse, and write down the number that comes out. You have decoded their message. Okay, if I can, and this is what I would have. 9, remember, was our first one. We decoded 23, we got 9. 51 minus 5 divided by 2 was our 23. 7 minus 5 divided by 2 gave us 1. Okay, I went through the entire message and decoded it, and this is what I got. Okay, so then next, what we want to do is use our original key that we had for A being 1, B being 2, C being 3, and we want to now change these from numbers back into letters. Okay. Alright, so if I do that, then what I'm looking at is 9. Okay, so I find that in my key. 9 is the letter I. So I know that the first letter in their message was I. At a break for a new word, 23 is the letter W. 1 is the letter A. Ugly A. 14 is the letter N. 20 is the letter T, and so on. Okay, so then you just continue and finish out that last word. And if I do that, I decode their message and find out that they said, I want money. Okay, so what would you post then for your reply? For your reply, you need to make sure that you have 2 things in that reply. Okay, you can make a comment on their message if you would like, but you need to have 2 things. You need to make sure you tell what their inverse was and what their coded message was. Those 2 things need to be in the reply that you make to a classmate. And again, you can't do one that's already been decoded by someone else. That doesn't make much sense, right? If it's already been decoded, what work did you have to do? Okay, so that's what I would reply, and then your last job is to go back to the message that you created after someone has decoded it and check their work to make sure they had the correct inverse and the correct message.